Good morning, guys. Welcome back to Inside Out Precision. Filming this one, it's about 7 in the morning here. Super busy this time of year, getting ready for bow season, and just was up too late last night. So anyway, morning edition. I've just had my coffee, so hopefully this goes well. So today we're going to talk about anchor point. I probably get 50 messages a week from people asking me if I can, look at their anchor point and give them any tips. So we're gonna kind of go over kind of why a good anchor point is important, and then how to achieve a repeatable anchor point that you can do every single time. So the biggest thing with an anchor point is consistency. So there's a lot of different anchors out there, but it needs to be repeatable. So by far and away, the most common one you're going to see is kind of 3 points of contact. And that's going to be tip of the nose, the string then comes by the corner of the mouth, and then this hand is on the jaw. Now, whether you're shooting an index style release, like I'm going to show today, or a handheld, literally the only difference is the position of my hand here. There's the string position, my head position, all that is going to remain the same. Now, I do want to preface this that draw length, if your draw length is way too long, it's going to be really hard to do this. If your draw length is too short, you should still be able to bend your arm and get your hand into position. But if you haven't seen my video on draw length, I would recommend checking that out if you're a new shooter, because when you have the correct draw length, it makes everything else a lot easier. So back to the anchor point. So the reason that you see the tip of the nose used and the hand against the jaw used like that is because if my head is aligned slightly differently from shot to shot, that means my eye is aligned slightly differently through that peep sight. Thus, when I look through it, I align my front sight differently on the target. So if you have what I call a floating anchor, which looks something like this, remember, always load an arrow if you're gonna draw your bow. If you have a floating anchor, which I see this a lot of, if you can see from the front there, it's like the string's not really touching anything. Their head's craned over, their hand's just kind of up here by their ear. There's so much variation shot to shot, and I mean just a millimeter or two of difference. I'm using my fingers, the string here. If my head is here one time and here another and here another, even though I'm aiming the same way, even though I'm putting the pin in the middle, it's gonna impact in a different spot because my head started in a different position, thus I align my front sight differently. So, having one that you can repeat every single time is very important, and the point of the nose is a small point that I can find every time, and if I'm not on it, it's easy to tell. Whereas if that string is just like floating back here on my cheek, there's really no defined point. Like, yeah, I might be able to feel kind of the same spot, but it's not as defined as the point of the nose. So what I like to see, so I'm gonna show you and then we'll kind of go over how to do it. What I like to see is when somebody draws back, their head is up over their body, comes right into the jawline, kind of right where the jaw turns down by the ear. My index knuckle touches right there. Nose comes right onto the string. So you can see string comes right by the tip of the nose, corner of my mouth, and then that hand is tight to my face. Now this is a pretty short bow. This is my old Hoyt Vulcan. This thing's from like 2006. Short bows can be a little difficult because sometimes you got to feel like you have to duck to get your head on the string because of that string angle. So if you need to lengthen your draw a little bit to where you don't have to duck and the string looks like this, so instead of the corner of the mouth, the string comes a little bit above the corner of the mouth, that is okay as long as you're not smashing your face and getting pressure on that string. So let's talk about the positioning there. So essentially what I do is take my index knuckle here, and right where my jaw turns down, right under my ear right here, it's that connection right there. Boom. It's a spot I can find every time. It's defined, it's easy. It's low enough that it helps keep this back shoulder down, whereas if I'm way up here, obviously as I bring my arm and my hand up, my shoulder is going to rise with it. And when you get that knuckle kind of, right on the point of that jaw, it brings that string in right in front of my eye. Oh, the cat's in here. Hate cats. Go away, Bruce. what I see a lot of is people who have too high of an anchor point. So they come in and their hand is like up here by their ear. And when I do that, you can see it pushes that string out away from my face, because as you know, our faces are angular for the most part. So as I slide that hand up onto my cheek, it's actually pushing that string out away from my face. So then what happens, God, cats are so selfish. So then what happens is as I bring that string up, now my peep, for me, I'm left-handed, that peep's way to the left, so I have to like crane my head over to see through it. And it's A, it's really uncomfortable, and B, it's very inconsistent. So I see a lot of people that anchor too high up on their cheek, and they get a lot of face pressure on the string. They also have issues with a really low peep sight. So the higher this hand comes up, the lower I have to make my peep sight, which if you're shooting a sight like a fast eddy or any sort of movable sight, the lower my peep is, the lower the starting position of my sight is, meaning I'm just gonna get less range out of it overall. You know, a lot of times I get these messages from guys or guys that come in the shop and they say, you know, I can only get 70 yards out of my sight. You know, do I need a faster bow or a lighter arrow, or what is it? And then I have them measure their peep height and it's like 4 7/8, which is extremely low. So, you know, a lot of guys come up and they're like here. So see where that arrow's kind of up by my mouth? So they're like this. The head is ducked. That arrow's really high. I want them to pick it up, knuckle, boom, right on the point of that jaw, tip of the nose on the string, just like that. Now, if you have a peep sight that maybe is too low currently, when you drop that hand down and kind of reposition yourself, it's going to change your peep height. So don't be afraid to cut that thing loose and slide it up to where you can actually see through it again. You can always rotate your string, you know, realign your loop, and you want to move your peep sight to your anchor, not your anchor to your peep, meaning, you know, I'm not just going to set my peep height at 5 inches, and if it's too low, like duck down to see through it, or if it's too high, lift up to see through it. I'm going to anchor, like what we do at the shop is we have people come in and anchor with their eyes closed in just a comfortable spot, and then open and look through the peep or look at their front sight. So, you know, they'll draw. So, okay, close your eyes and anchor. They come in and they anchor. We go, all right, now look at your front sight. And when they open their eyes and look at their front sight, if the peep sight is too low or too high, we will move it until it's centered around their front sight. So again, with, you know, whether it's an index style or a handheld, literally the only difference between my index and my handheld is about, I don't know, 15 degrees in my hand here. So a handheld, basically between, you know, kind of these two knuckles. Let's set this down real quick. Ugh. A handheld release, like if I'm shooting a hinge, my jawline, that point on my jaw right here, basically is just gonna go kind of right between those two knuckles. So, you know, if your draw length is too long, again, you know, if you draw back and you're super stretched out, you're not gonna be able to get into your anchor point. If you draw back and you're too short, let's say like your arm is straight, you draw back and it stops right here, you should still be able to bend that front arm and get everything into your anchor point, and then it's just a matter of getting your draw length extended in the front half to get that arm out. So, you know, there's a lot of different anchor points out there. Like I said, this is not the only one, but generally speaking, if I can get those 3 points of contact, tip of the nose, right by the corner of the mouth, and then knuckle behind the jaw, it's gonna create a very repeatable shot process, basically, or anchoring process for you, thus creating more consistency downrange. Now, I know I'm gonna get a ton of questions on what do you think of kisser buttons? What do you think of nose buttons? You know, I think they're a helpful tool when you're beginning to shoot. I don't think that they are like the cure-all for everything. You know, I put a nose button on my target bow because a guy had an extra one at the shop. He wanted the big one, so I put the small one on my bow. Didn't really do anything for me, but I've also been shooting for 20 years and I'm very, you know, comfortable in my anchor. I don't really think about my anchor. I've done it so many hundreds of thousands of times. For someone who's brand new, you know, what's nice about the nose button is that it makes that point on your nose even more noticeable. And if you're smashing too hard into it, you know, it hurts, so it tells you right away. Kind of the same with a kisser button. But the problem with kisser buttons that I see is people spend so much time monkeying around trying to get that kisser button right that they're at full draw for like 7 or 8 seconds before they even start to aim the bow, and it almost does more damage than good. So that kind of brings me to my next point, which is, you know, when you're practicing, you want to really work on sneaking into that anchor point just one time. If you watch a lot of these pros, they don't draw back and then do this, getting settled in. They draw back, boom, settle in one time and execute the shot. So, like I said, what I see a lot of, especially with kind of new shooters, and this is just because, you know, they're practicing, but they draw back and it's this. And then they finally find their anchor and come in. What we want to see is you get everything set, draw, sneak in one time, just like that. What that's gonna do, again, with that knuckle kind of right, let me get a close up there. You know, basically this little pocket kind of on the point of my jaw, right under my earlobe right there, boom, my knuckle goes right there. If I come up too high, some people use like the horseshoe of their hand right here, like like this portion right here. They kind of hook the underside of their jaw with it. That can work really well for some people. A lot of this is going to depend on, you know, the shape of your face. Again, for me, if I do that, my hand comes up too high on my face, my peep sight gets really low and it pushes that string away and I just feel really scrunched. So I like kind of right behind and, you know, on the point of that jaw right there. That seems to work really well. So if you have any questions about this, please give me, you know, or drop a line on the comment section below here. Hit me up on Instagram. I know there's going to be a ton of questions on the kisser buttons and nose buttons. So I'm just going to tell you right now, the answer is yes. I think they can be useful, but I don't think that they're going to take your shooting to like the whole next level. You know, really just focusing on those 3 points I talked about is going to be the key. Thank you guys for watching. We've had a really good run this summer. I know everybody's at home going crazy with this coronavirus stuff. So stay safe, keep them in the middle, and remember, precision is a decision.